Hey guys, it's Starfield Dad back with another build video. If you checked out my previous build videos on the stealth and the melee, you'll know that obviously stealth is up close and sneaking around, and the melee is close quarter combat right in the enemy's face. Now with this build, we're changing it up a little bit. And I simply just like to call this build the Demolitionist build. Because what we're going to be focusing on here is insane damage, a wide area of effect against your foes, and insane spaceship combat as well. There are some cons to this build, but we'll discuss that later. And as always, this build is just a template, an example of what is possible. This is all based on pre-release footage and obviously is incomplete until launch date. Once that happens, I'll try to update this build to the best of my ability and give you guys a better fighting chance on any of your playthroughs. So without further ado, let's get into it. You might think that the Demolitionist build will be the simpler of the builds, but in truth there's a little bit more mechanics involved to it. Not just simply tossing grenades and hoping for the best. So our main focus here is demolition, explosives, grenades, spaceship missiles, and combat is all part of how this build really works and it succeeds. You will need to rely on heavy weapons when you're on the ground and look towards ranking up your combat skill tree. With ranking that skill tree up, your character is going to receive various grenades and landmines to use as explosives to aid in your destruction of everything in front of you. Along with the combat skill tree, your other main skill tree is going to be the tech skill tree. With this build, you're going to be able to board, dock ships, and capture ships if necessary. When you think demolishing or annihilating, think big explosives, guns, grenades, and starships, of course. Now, like the other builds, the first step in making this build succeed is selecting the proper background. And with this background, you're going to want the combat medic. Now, I know that may sound odd, but listen to me, I'll explain. Now with Combat Medic, you will start with pistol certification, medicine, and the wellness skill. Now we currently don't have the entire list of backgrounds, but with the information we do have, this selection gives us a weapon skill, increased healing, and higher health. Ideally, you're also going to want to start with something that has heavy weapons, explosive benefits, or even perks for your starship. Now we do know that Combat Medic doesn't have a starting skill with explosives, but we're going to make up for that later in the skills and weapon choices. And those starting skills that we get with Combat Medic give us a good advantage right out of the gate. Pistol certification is just pistols do more damage. It's always good to have a sidearm, especially when you're tossing grenades and mines. The medicine skill is simply med packs heal more. And in this kind of build with explosives going anywhere and getting into tight combat spaces, it's going to be good to have extra chance to heal up. And to our knowledge, the wellness skill gives us extra health permanently. We're not sure exactly how much or how it'll be leveled up exactly in the game, but to have a permanent health boost is huge in any build. And after going over all of the traits that we do know and what they currently have, I feel the best trait for this build, similar to some other builds, is the wanted trait. Again, this could change once we get all the traits unlocked on launch day, but for now we'll stick with this. And the wanted trait simply goes as this: when your health is low, the trait gives you a damage buff, but mercenaries will randomly show up to kill you. Depending on how you look at it, that could be a pro and a con, or in my eyes, two pros. I've said it before previously, but you get the extra damage boost at low health, and mercenaries show up, and if you can take them, at least you get new gear and possibly even new ships. Now it's good to be said that you get 3 traits with any build, where the wanted is a mandatory trait for this build. I say play around with the other 2 traits. Look to see what's interesting to you, especially when they all get released on the day 1 launch. So you got your background, you've got at least 1 starting skill trait. Now it's time to dive into some skills. Now as I said before, the most important skill tree out of all of this to make the demolition build do what it needs to do will be the combat skill tree. Now early on in the combat skill tree, you can access the ballistic skill, and that's simply going to increase your damage with ballistic type of weapons. And as you make your way up the skill tree in tier 2, you can access to demolition and heavy weapons certification. Both of these are critical to the build, increasing explosive damage and heavy weapon damage over time. Then in tier 3, you get access to rapid reloading and marksmanship, perfect for aiming down sights with heavy weapons and high explosives. Moving on to the physical skill tree, this won't be our focus in this build. Weightlifting can be useful because of the weapons will be heavy and you will have a limited carrying capacity, as in typical BGS games, but additionally, wellness can give us some more health, but isn't critical to the in-game progression, so we'll move on. The social skill tree, no matter what build you take, is always essential for influencing dialogue. Now I know what you might be thinking, why do this when you can just blow stuff up? But the reason being is two early skills can help in conversations, and those are persuasion and intimidation. Persuasion is in the first tier and should be easy to access right away if you want some way to influence outcomes. And intimidation obviously speaks for itself and is a crucial skill trait to pick up later on. In the tech skill tree, this is going to be crucial to the build too, because when it comes to explosives in space, this is going to aid in our build extremely. Early on, you can pick up either ballistic or missile weapon systems for better spaceship damage. You can also get boost pack training early on, which will significantly increase your mobility and possibly your survivability depending on how you play. And finally, in tier 4, you'll gain the skill targeting control systems, which allow you to zero in on specific subsystems of the ship you target. You can then board and take over the ship in space. That is really the main focus on the skill trees. You can pick and choose and have fun with other skill trees and traits, of course, but what I just explained will be the heart and soul of the demolition build skills. Now, what would be a demolitions build without the right weaponry? Weapons like the minigun with explosive rounds make the best weapons for demolition expert builds in Starfield. You want your character to be able to handle multiple engagements at different ranges. Starfield weapons come in 3 broad categories that I went over in previous build videos, but here they are again: physical, energy, and electromagnetic. This build will primarily focus on 1 close range weapon and 1 medium range weapon. Combat in Starfield has been shown in the open world or close quarters, so you will need to be prepared for both. And with these weapons, you want to focus for explosive rounds or armor-piercing rounds, which will help you the most with this build. Now, moving on to armor, we know that Starfield has 4 categories: spacesuits, packs, helmets, and apparel. Each piece of armor has damage reduction and resistance for physical energy and electromagnetic. Armor has also included resistance to environmental effects such as thermal, airborne, corrosive, and radiation. A lot of that we did see in the Starfield Direct. Currently, not much is known about the armor in Starfield, other than it has a chance to drop a legendary armor with powerful traits. Looking at some of the known companions we have for Starfield, I feel the best demolition expert companion you can get is going to be Vasco. Mainly because likely he will have high survivability, lasers, and melee damage. Companions in Starfield will have a story role to play, with many having interesting backgrounds and personalities you can discover through personalized side quests. With time, as your relationship grows with them, some may even become available to romance. But needless to say, while not all are known, Vasco to me makes the great heavy damage companion that will likely be a very sturdy and take on a lot of damage in this demolition build. And of course, we don't know everything yet, but based on what I do know, I feel like this demolition build will be one of the few you should try out on day 1. They can be a lot of fun, especially if you like blowing things up. But as always, I want to know what you guys think in the comments. Are you going to try a build like this, or just go at it whatever feels right as you pick perks and traits and backgrounds? Either way, I'd love to hear from all of you, and thank you so much for the support I've seen over the past few weeks as we progress towards Starfield releasing in just a few days. I hope you all enjoyed this build video, and if you did, it brought any kind of value, entertainment, or anything to you, a sub really would mean the world to me. But until next time, this is Starfield Dad. Have a great evening, and Ad Astra.